Welcome back to the Freedom Podcast. We are here with G. How are you, G?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, Josh. A little bunged up from the old hay fever. So if I sound nasally, that's what it is. But raring to go. Ready to go, Josh.
Come on, G. We've had some exciting stuff going on here in Raleigh. We've obviously a lot of people have been following our journey and our story here with what's been going on over these over this last year, where we kind of launched our church publicly back in September, but it's caused us all kinds of issues. So we are currently looking at about what we do, because we've had problems with space, problem with children's spaces. Because when we were in our building and designing the space, we were kind of 60 people, and it was maybe a dream to be able to get over 100 or
Yeah.
120 or something like that. And the church has just quadrupled in the last 9-10 months. But that means we've had problems with parking. Even when we were announcing this at church on Sunday and saying, hey, guys, we're having problems with parking, so one of our team comes into the auditorium on the Sunday, and obviously, like, there's something going on outside, and they're like, so we like, hey, is everything okay? So, like, from stage, hey, is everything okay? And they're like, can someone in the blue Kia please move their car because they're blocking? So it's like, this is just a great example right now. Like, we're literally having to pull people out of service so that they can go and move their car.
Great timing that was.
Yeah, it's funny. And then yeah, with our children's spaces, with our auditorium space, it's been amazing what God's done, but it's caused all kinds of challenges and stretches for us in terms of like where we're at. So we're moving the whole church later this year. We're moving in September 15th, which is almost exactly a year. It's like 51 weeks later, we're moving venues from when we launched the church publicly last September, so that we can plant into a high school and we can load in, load out. We can set up church on Sunday.
Brilliant.
We're really excited about it because we just believe it's like going to give us this space to grow. And the picture I gave to the church was about how like when you've got a plant that needs repotting. I'm sure this never happens to you, G, because you're such an avid gardener. But the roots are like pressed along
Things
the
keep
side.
dying, Josh.
The roots keep, like, they're all pressed around the side. You take it out, and you're like, oh my gosh, this has been limited by its pot. And it feels like that with the church. It's grown so much, and yet it feels actually we've got more potential to grow, but we need to be in a different size pot. So we're repotting this plant, and we're going to be moving to Millbrook High School. So we're getting the team geared up. We've got lots of buying gear to do. We're going to do a big promotion. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it is amazing to think that you spent as well. You launched last September, but you'd spent, I don't know how long it was, over a year or so renovating the building, getting things like you had lots of challenges. There was finance, and you did all of that. And then I think really within 6 months of launching, you were starting thinking, I don't think this is going to last much longer. Yeah. Who would have thought? But this is the church, and when you're hearing that, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. But with growth comes challenge, and the challenge is now it's like, right, we're going to have to almost go further, dig deeper. We're going to have to look for more of those people to say, come on, we're behind you, because it will, you almost get comfortable even being where you are, because that's your building. But now it's like, no, we're going to go in, load in, load out. It's probably going to be earlier mornings. So you're causing that sort of, discomfort again. But that's where the growth is. The growth's in the discomfort. It's never sort of in the comfort stages. It just doesn't, it's not a law of life. You want to see more, you're going to need to stretch. Stretching is uncomfortable. And that just reminds me, shout out to Jordan, Liz, because they're a few days overdue. Our little grandchild's going to be coming soon, any moment. So actually, while we're on this call, we could have a message saying it's all systems go. Talk about the stretching, but then there's going to be this beautiful gift of a baby. Cannot wait. So we're all excited, aren't we, in our family for that new little arrival?
Any day now.
Yeah, come on.
It's very
exciting. I love it, Josh. love what's happening with you guys
Yeah,
in Raleigh. September, you got the whole of summer to get ready.
I know, right? Yeah, loads of time. It'll be fine. No, we're excited about what God's going to do there. And I was thinking around how are we going to achieve something like this? Because it's a huge operation. It's a lot of work. I went down for when Dave was planting in Courageous down in Charleston and looked at their church setup, and it's like, wow, it is work. And I remember someone telling me years ago, how do you spell how do you spell revival? And it's WORK. It's like you got to put in the
Very good.
work.
Yeah,
It's like if you've got the that Jesus says, like, that the harvest is plentiful. There is so much that God can do. What do we need? Not just people to kind of, oh, just make that. It's like we need workers,
yeah,
and that's what we're looking for now. Over this summer, we're looking for people who are going to come and work with us and see this harvest come to pass that we believe God's going to bring in the city.
absolutely, Josh.
Come on.
Come on.
But as we do all of that, one of the things I was thinking about our team and thinking about, this is impossible for us to do it alone. We need people alongside us, and this is a principle that we've talked about, so many times over the years. Something that's really important to Freedom Church, something that's important to church culture, I believe. And it really comes as well. It's one of our DNA. We talk about being heart and soul. It really
Yeah.
comes from this story I'm going to talk about now, which I know is one of your favorites. I've heard you preach it so many times
Yep.
because there's something that just kind of gets you fired up about this moment. But um, I'm talking about First Samuel 14, where you've got the story of Jonathan and the armor bearer, and the Israelites are facing their great foe, the Philistines. They're at the top of a cliff. They've only got two weapons between them. Jonathan's got one. Saul the king has got the other. Everyone else has kind of got clubs and farm tools and things like that to fight people with swords and shields. And they're all kind of sat disillusioned, not really knowing what to do. And Jonathan comes up with this plan and this thought to say, we've got to do something about this enemy. We can't just be sat here any longer and just contemplating how terrible this is, or, kind of trying to come up with some way that something's going to change. Let's go and actually do something. So you've got the leader, he gets a vision and he gets this idea, we've got to do something about this problem. And then he comes up with this plan. We're going to climb up the cliff and we're going to fight the enemy. And he says it to his young armor bearer. He says, like, right, me and you, we're going to do this. What, two of us take on an army with one weapon? Yeah. I mean, what's the rest of the plan? What are you going to do when you've just climbed up a cliff? I imagine if you climb up the cliff, you might be feeling it a little bit, feeling a bit tired. And it's like there's an enemy waiting for you up there. And so it says in verse 7, no, sorry, it's this verse. Yeah, so verse 6, Jonathan said to his young armor bearer, come, let's go over to the outpost of those uncircumcised men. Perhaps the Lord will act in our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. So he presents his plan to the armor bearer, and you might be thinking, this is a crazy plan, Jonathan. I'm out. It's like, why don't you go and I'll cheer you on from down here? You're putting both of our lives at risk here. What's the armor bearer going to respond with to this crazy plan to take on a whole army with one sword, one club? We reckon the armor bearer's probably got, and two men. And this is his response: do all that you have in mind, as armor bearer said. Go ahead. I'm with you, heart and soul.
Ooh, come on. There's the fire.
And that's what we're like, isn't it, G? That's freedom
Yeah.
through and through. And I think that's why
Yeah.
it's a story that resonates. It's like there are so many reasons not to climb up that cliff. I know me and you were just having a conversation before this call saying, sometimes maybe there's things in this world that are trying to slow us down, saying, no, you shouldn't climb up there. It's not safe. It's dangerous. It's not even a good plan. And we're like, yeah, but there's a victory up there waiting for us
Yeah.
if we just climb for it. But we need people who are going to believe that with us, right?
Yeah, it is. I think that's the deal breaker. Anyone can turn up, and as we know, Jonathan's father, King Saul, he was under the pomegranate tree of procrastination,
Oof.
and he's there with basically the fighting force that they have, the army that they have, and they're doing nothing because they're just talking about what might be. They're sort of in fear. They're not being led, and there's no vision. They're not being led. They're just like hiding under a tree. And then you've just got someone, which is Jonathan, is just willing to say, I think there's more. And this is the difference. I think it starts with this, is I think there is more. I think more is possible than what we're seeing. And I don't know how it's going to work out. And in the past, I preached on this probably loads of times, but one of the big things is this: maybe God will move for us. And the power of the maybe in our lives today is the same. And so I really try and face, every sort of day, I try and face it with this idea that when you hit challenge, you hit the rock face, you hit the sort of, wow, this looks, I got a challenge, I got a mountain to climb here, is just having this thing. Yeah, but maybe it's not all over. Maybe it's not just the rock face. Maybe we could go up it and the victory is up the top. Like it's all contra to the way military tactics work. You attack from the height, you don't climb up a crag. But
Yeah.
there's something in Jonathan that is like courageous, and he's almost like poking it, saying, "Yeah, but I'm willing to believe that maybe God will move for us." And this audacity of faith is like, this is provoking, and I think this is what attracts the armor bearer. Like the armor bearer, he's not attracted to, hey, we're going to sit under a tree. It was safe under the tree. Really, it was predictable and it was boring, but you weren't going to find victory there. But who starts like the events of this day? You get this young man called Jonathan who's really going against his father's wishes. He's like, you got to realize that he's almost, some people would say, oh, that's a bit dishonoring. He's not obeying the king. But he's saying, no, there's something in me more. And sometimes you've got to break out of the system. Sometimes you've got to break out of the health and safety. You can imagine climbing up that rock crag. And if it was 2024, there'd be a whole list of, we've done a health and safety
Oh
evaluation.
gosh.
Make sure you've got your climbing equipment.
They're
Make
trying to
sure
kill the adventure in us, G, aren't they?
try to
They're
kill
trying
the
to take it away
adventure,
from
the
us.
wildness, that
Never.
wildness that we have. And we got to keep coming back to this because we are in a world that wants to dampen it all the time. I am being told what I can't do. Like, as we run church, and I'm not, I'm thankful for those people that keep me safe. But all the time there are like rules, regulations. You can't do this, you can't do that. And we need some of it. But I am sure even that day, Jonathan must have been there. Like, there's a whole list of reasons why I shouldn't, but I just got one reason to go. And that's victory is at the top of this. And I'm willing to put my life on it. And this is a great thing, Josh, is why did that young armor bearer, they think he could have been like a 12, 30, a 13-year-old boy. And he's like going to go and lay down his life. He hasn't even got a sword. And he's going to go with him because he believes in this one person who is casting vision for the impossible. And it's like, I want to be there. I want to go with him. I'm up for the adventure. And I think it says something about what God puts in each of us. Many of us are asleep because we don't have any vision to follow, or we're too comfortable and thinking, oh, it might cost me too much. And this armor bearer, come on, we got to like applaud him. He's got no name in the story, and I call him the nameless volunteer. He's like, he hasn't even got like, hey, today we're gonna celebrate the volunteer of the month. No, he's just a young lad who has a connection with Jonathan's heart, and he's there thinking, I'm with you. Like, for him to say this, and he's a young lad, and then other people would despise him because of his youth. It's like, oh, well, what have you got to offer? But Jonathan had this incredible belief in his armor bearer. So it can just be me and you. Oh, that's what we need. We need to like remove some of we disqualify people before they even get on the rock face. We see all the issues and the regulations why we can't do stuff. And I just hope that even talking about this story, Josh, it sort of stirs some of us up who are sat under the pomegranate tree right now, because we are in a world that wants to keep you under the pomegranate tree. And we can talk about being heart and soul, but if I'm going to have a bit of a complaint right now, I see too many people in church sat under the pomegranate tree. Oh, well, I'm doing my bit and I'm doing this and that. But it's like, I feel now, even with where you are in Raleigh, it's like, hey, guys, you want to see more? God has more. There's a greater prize out there. There's people that need us out there. We need to go up the cliff, but you can't do it from your armchair. You can't do it saying, well, I don't want to give any more. There will be a cost. There'll be a risk. It will cost you. But when you go on that, there is nothing greater than to be in that moment, because you're going to be the ones that see the victory firsthand, and they were the ones who saw it firsthand.
Come on. I think that there is something, isn't there, about the safety under the shade of the tree and the risk of the crag, that they're so opposing to one another, aren't they? And we want to be those that take the risk. I mean, it's literally written into our DNA. If you look at Live Full Die Empty, it's like we're going to be taking risks and grabbing life by the horns. It's in our DNA that we take risks, and we are going to step out. And it's like was this reasonable to do what he did? Was this in any way, would this pass any vote? That's probably why he didn't take it to the king or take it to the rest of the
That's
army.
right.
No one's going to be saying, "Oh, this
Absolutely.
is a good idea." It doesn't seem like a good idea. Was when Peter was on the boat looking out onto the water, and Jesus there walking, and they think he's a ghost at first. And it's like, if it's you, say come, and I'll come. Yeah, come. Is anyone saying, "Have you thought this through? It's a storm out
Yeah.
there. There's waves. Like, are you really going to get out of this boat? This isn't very sensible." And we become so sanitized and
Oh,
safe that we forget that actually to take faith in something is to take risk.
come on, Josh.
Because if it was guaranteed, you wouldn't be able to you wouldn't be able to credit with the faith, would you? It wouldn't be a faith thing. But we as a people are called to take risks. We're called to step out and believe for things. And yet there's something that the world wants to sanitize and do our little checklists. And again, we're not saying don't be wise, and there aren't places for those things. But when it crushes or squashes or strangles the adventure and the life and the faith out of the people of God, that's not right. That's not what I see
Yeah,
in scripture.
absolutely. It is true. We use this, well, I'm just being wise or I'm being careful. We actually use it as an excuse for inaction. Because when you come and you look at faith, how many times when like, we're called to live a life of faith, yeah, and wisdom. But when wisdom, as in we use that as a, well, I'm just being careful, I'm being wise. And it's like the best thing would be to stay down under the tree. That's what they would all vote. The committee would vote for that. God doesn't work through a committee. He works through individuals who are ready to respond to a call to believe the impossible. And you can gather all the sort of sensible ideas, but you see through biblical history, it's the ones that decided to step out and say, Lord, I'm available. I'm ready. I've counted the cost. I'm coming. Because what happens is you can't stay in the middle. You can't stay sort of on the fence and say, hey, I'm just, I'm not going backwards into comfort and I'm okay. I'm just looking at the next faith step. Unless you're moving forward in faith, you will revert back to inaction. It's in our human nature.
Right.
So I know there'll be people listening that you didn't have an intention to sort of end up in a place where actually, yeah, I've got a bit comfy. I've sat back, I'm not praying audacious prayers. I'm not taking that big risk. You didn't plan that. It's just if unless you're going forward, and that's what Jonathan's saying, we got to do something. We got to move forward, because when you move forward, it's a statement of faith. It's like we're going to knock some doors. We're going to climb up some mountain and see if God moves for us. You don't know when you're at the bottom. And when we stand still, You don't stand still, really. You move backwards. And before you know it, you're under the tree in the shade. And you think, how did I get so civilized and safe? Someone said you were a sensible person. Yeah, you're a sensible, safe person, but you're doing nothing to change the world.
It's so true. And I think about how we as leaders, we want to keep calling people up, don't we, to take those risks and to believe in
Yep.
that big breakthrough thing that God can do, to live dangerously. And so even as like I was thinking about giving and about how, even we can practice this with our giving, it's like, when you have an offering, do you give what's like, oh, that's reasonable or that's safe,
Yeah.
or do you
Yeah.
stretch yourself and you even practice again this risk, if you like, of like, God, I'm trusting you with this. This was my holiday money for this year or whatever it is like, God, I'm going to trust you with that.
Yeah.
um Maybe like you could really do with a new car, and you've been saving up, or you want to put some money down for a new car, and instead of buying the new car, you pray to God that your old one carries on, and you give the money to the kingdom instead. You give it for that mission. You give it to that church extension that's happening, or this plant that we're doing, and you trust God with it. But I think a lot of us is like, well, what's the reasonable thing to do? What's the safe thing to do? And actually, that kind of audacious faith is unlocked through the sacrifice, through the risk. And again, I'm not saying do things like where you get yourself into debt or things like that. That would be unwise. But I am saying I think
Yeah.
that we often play it far too safe with how we do and what we do, and that um, we need to trust God more by stepping out and believing that He can do it. Perhaps God will move. That's what they say, don't they, in this story?
Yeah. And because of the fear of disappointment, because at the end of the day, they were going up risking their lives, but you could use that analogy for our own lives. If I'm going to step out in a faith move out from the shade of the tree, I'm going to believe something audacious. I step out. And if it doesn't come through, it will cost me. That's where people they get stopped. They sort of, oh, I don't know, because what if it fails? What if I get it? What if it doesn't come through? And that sort of fear stops us pushing forward. And it's the same around our giving. What we give, it's like, yeah, but what if I step out and it doesn't work? It doesn't come through. And that's that real risk. That's why he's saying, come on, maybe God will move, because he doesn't need a big number to have a miracle. We got a big army in front of us, but all it takes is two of us. And I just this audacious, but he's willing to take the risk. And that fear of failure often just stuns us into inaction of just saying, well, just keep, and we're praying for a sign, and we're praying for, oh, show me if I need to do it, when God is just saying, take steps of faith. Step out and take these steps of faith. Just like you said, Peter, it's like, come to me. Go on, come. You might get a bit wet, but heck, this is where you're going to grow the most, is outside of the boat, not in the boat.
That's right. It's so good. And gee, I think about our journey as a church, the people that we've reached, the places that we've gone to. Would have we been able to do that if we'd gone through a health and safety checklist? If we'd gone through and said, is this sensible? Do we have the budget? There are people now listening to this podcast that would not know Jesus, that would not have
Yeah.
been impacted if we had tried to work everything out and tried to condition everything to certain standards. We took massive risks to say, let's send this young couple. Let's stand with these people. Let's believe for this city. Let's go to this place that you can't even legally see people come to Christ, because we're not going to wait until everything's sanitized and safe. We're going to say, we're going to take a risk and believe that God can do it. We don't have all the
Yeah.
answers, but that's who we are. That's who God has made us to be.
Yeah, even this weekend, people came to know Jesus because someone chose to believe and say, I'm going to go up the rock face. You know, we're talking about victory. The greatest victory is when we see people follow Jesus, when we win them from the grip of hell. We're seeing that every week. But I think a lot of people don't realize that there was a cost to that. Someone went first. Whether it was the Jonathan and some volunteer who was part of a team, or someone who set up in church like the last few weeks, who was just saying, I'm here. You can rely on me. And as you know, you and Rose are going to jump into this whole new season of the school. There's going to be a great, like, you need more help. You need more people to step up. And it's like, you can't see the harvest unless people step up. But this is what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, but who's with us? And if you turn around, like Jonathan turns around, and it's like, oh well, where is he? He's gone. That armor because he had second thoughts, or he had a lie-in because he's had a bit of it's a bit of a tiring season at the minute, and he just needed a little bit extra time in bed. And he turns around, he's not there. And it's like, well, when you said about volunteering, I thought it was just when it was convenient to me. Do you know what I mean? And we're in a world right now where we feel there are so many, well, I've got all these rights and things going on in my life, and then I'll fit the kingdom in when it suits.
Yeah,
Like, surely that is more your pomegranate tree Christianity. And I know this one we're doing today is coming over perhaps quite sort of tough, but this is what heart and soul is. Let's stop watering down what it means, heart and soul. You know, in Hereford we have heart and soul nights, and we have a vision for that. But I got to say, I'm saying this on behalf of Joff and Sean as well, is that we're not there. As in, we're calling it, and it disturbs me because when I look and I see sometimes the response or lack of response, I'm thinking, no, actually, there's more. This isn't,
mm,
if we're going to start calling things as Christians, we put names on them. Let's be what it says on the tin. Are we heart and soul? That means when we're going for something, we can rely on you. And I think that's why I got such a huge appreciation for the volunteers that turn up tirelessly, consistently
come
to
on.
make things happen. Often you don't know their names, but we have, as I said, we have people every week coming to know Jesus because there's a volunteer that says, you know, even some of our young teenagers, it's like, I'm there every week. I'm not crying off because I had a tough Saturday. No, I'm there every week. You know, those people that say, I'm with you, Josh and Rose, our pastors, we're with you. And you know, like even now, Josh, you know the people that you can completely rely on, the group that could be a bit hit and miss, and the ones that probably are no show. And I think this power of consistency when you're talking about faith is the only way you can achieve the victory.
Come on.
You can't see it through this inconsistent hit and miss. And I think that's what this story is really speaking to us. And
Absolutely.
that's a question for every one of us. Are you someone that is going to be there when, you know, when your leader turns around? And I want to be there even when I hear what you guys are doing. That it just stirs something in my heart, like about the school. And if we were in the same town as you, it's like I want to get behind that.
Mm,
I want to see the more. Josh, what do we need to do? Right, we're going to be there 6 a.m. We're going to load it. I want to be part of that.
yeah,
Let's go up the rock face and see what God has. And that does attract people, but there will be a cost. And again, don't jump in for the first few weeks because it sounded like a great idea. It's work,
that's right.
it's commitment,
Yeah,
it's going to take something from you. But that consistency is keeping your focus on the prize.
that's it. What a great adventure it sounds to go up the rock, you know, but it's like you're sweating and it says the rock. You know, one of the names of it, it was like razor sharp. And so it's like you're going up there, maybe you're cutting yourself on the rock as you're climbing up, you're sweating in the sun, and there's an enemy waiting for you at the top. It's like, what, how crazy is this? It's like Peter getting out, wow, he walked on the water, yeah, and then he sank. And it's like he was, you know, like Jesus had to come and rescue him. It's like you want to take risks, then don't expect to stay dry. Like you said, you know, stay. It's
Yeah.
like things are going to happen, but it's worth it. It's worth it to step out. I think about us going into this school, G, and we could so easily stay where we are right now. And I think the church would just do fine. I think we'd do fine. It would be so much easier for us to stay where we are. We're not putting pressure on people. We don't need any more money. We're now doing a campaign for like $200,000 where we're
Wow.
looking for people to like give to this. And we've been doing it for a couple of weeks now, and we are nowhere near what we need. And there's a huge amount that needs to happen for us to be able to get that money that we
Come
need.
on, Josh.
So again, we've got the risk of like, what if we don't even have the equipment that we need to go and do the job that we got to do? Or we go and we move into this space. Our seating right now, our capacity is probably 180 to 200 adults in our main space. The one we're going to is 555.
Ooh, come on.
So we could be swallowed up in that space. We could be like, man, we've totally outstretched ourselves here. We've got into a space that we cannot feel, and now we feel like we're just, you can hear yourself. So there's all this risk, but it's like that's who we are as a people. That is who freedom is. And it's like we are always going to want to say, let's step out, let's believe, let's trust
Yeah.
God. And so for all of our people listen to this today as we close up in a moment, I would say, when was the last time you took a faith risk? When was the last time you believed for something big? What's the risk that maybe you've been avoiding because it just felt too safe inside that boat? And God's saying, trust me, come. What's the thing that you need to do to make that step?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. I think in our prayers as well, what are the audacious prayers you're praying? If we're praying safe prayers, do you know what I mean? That don't really, they're not, they're just perhaps around our needs and stuff. But what are the prayers that you're praying? Lord, would you do this? Would you move? Oh, come on. We're going to pray. We're going to expect. I think it stirs something within each of us.
Mm.
But we have that, you mentioned it, the LFD, live full, die empty DNA, and grab life by the horns, and the picture of the bull, grab by the horns and ride that bull. I think that's really imprinted in my heart.
Come on,
And
you
and
bull
the way
rider.
the way I see it is, I don't want to watch someone else doing what I should be doing.
Mm.
I don't want to go to the bull riding show and go, oh, weren't they great riding the bull? I want to be on the bull. I want to like be on the adventure. I don't want to be a spectator. I don't want to get to heaven. And I'd say this to people right now. Don't you get to heaven and watch your life flash before you, and it wasn't the life that God called you to live. It was something that you were an observer. You were the one that watched someone go up the rock face. Because I think there are a lot of people God calls into his kingdom, and he's saying, come on, you need to come high. You need to get out from the shade. You need to be that armor bearer, say, I'm with you on the adventure, but it means riding the bull. Stop like spectating, step out, start riding the bull, because I don't want to get before, the Father and then suddenly think, wow, I missed that. I wasn't part of that day. Can you imagine all those hundreds of soldiers, and they were
Yeah.
never part of that initial thing because they got stuck in it. So today's a day of taking those faith steps,
Come
of
on.
saying, come on, let's go and see what God is about to do.
Come on. Hey, if this hasn't put fire in your bones today, then I don't know what we can do to help you, because I'm fired up now. But we pray this
Come on,
blesses
Josh.
you,
It
fires you up.
works.
Get
It's
out there and
real.
believe God for the
God
impossible.
moves. He's waiting
Come
for his
on.
people, Josh.
That's it. And we'll be back next week with some more fire for your bones. All right. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, G.